This series, unlike the other 40 plus years, goes back to a period of painting that I constructed in really reverence, and one still must have reverence to artists of that era, but Sargent. Other American painters were in the heart when I was thinking about and mostly Sargent's watercolors. But this series of paintings, again, it may have its early origin in those watercolors, but it really comes out of fishing and out of being in the woods and being along rivers. So the huge elemental forces that are always present in my work, rock, sky, water, the notion of them being almost sentient in a sensibility, it wouldn't be lost on Bakhtin's philosophy when you really think about the way he was engaging the 21st century dialogue and even early 20th century dialogue about why does paint operate? How is it emotional? How is it psychological? And all those elements, those forces that I talked about that are at work, they're almost circular patterns of creative and destructive energy. Whirlpools, if you will. All of those earlier energies in the allegorical have come to bear in these. There were some physical, intentionally imposed focuses of materiality. I started these off with small twig drawings from memory, right by streamside most times. And they were twigs, oak twigs and bamboo reed pens that were dipped into India ink, sepia, and those were the first passes that I did on these ideas. Then some of the paintings had watercolors, which you have here and had in New York. And so those are just kind of another play with the structure of it to kind of try to get in my mind what that fallen mesa looked like or that castle wall. And then the paintings begin. And that's to me where the emotional and the psychological impact, they're not, as I said, directionally plein air in any way, shape, or form. That's a giving yourself unto nature and almost mimicking its forms to try to find a newness. I don't want forms to get in the way. If I want to move the rock over, move it left and right, that's why I actually stopped watercolors back in the mid-'80s as large-scale landscapes. I wanted more erasability, flexibility. If the works in oil started thin, I wanted to be able to build them up thicker and thicker until their conclusion. So that as I have discoveries along the way, my intention would be to have the viewer have these sorts of opportunities and visual engagements with each work. There are no knife applications, no glazing. Everything is alla prima, wet into wet, and I'm responding to the discoveries I'm making with each hue. So the white is white, but I consider white a color as I do black. I achieve black by alizarin crimson and viridian green, by ivory black, by Mars black, which is more cool. And I generally start off with very earthen palettes and then rapidly move towards a full color chromatic. But what I try to allow when the watercolors happen, it's more of a graphic, what did that structure look like from my little ink sketch? From those to the watercolor to the paperwork to the larger oils. For me, the larger oils, so if they all start with black, white, and gray, I let the larger oils go a little bit further adrift emotionally. I want the black, white, and colorful gray underpaint to suggest the liberation of a broader hue of intense color. Focus points. This idea of them having an anchor, just like your subject matter has an anchor, so those colors can be built up into. It's like you have a green painting behind you, Falling Mesa, and it is a green painting, and yet that vermilion red, that cadmium de doré roses, the richer hues of red, are like punctums of color within an overarching green field. And they weren't there in nature, but they're there in my psychological heart, remembering what it was like to be with a father and a son and fish every year for going on 50 years now. So my love of it, I can close my eyes as much as I can see a human figure. I can see rocks up all the way into Montana. Rock, sky, water,